Hey everybody, Dr. Greco here. It's Friday. It's our last day talking about discipline or self-control. In the Bible, there are a dozen or more verses we didn't even touch about this. And what we said is the Holy Spirit, Paul says in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, the Holy Spirit is what drives you to be disciplined, and He's what gives us self-control. We've said this week it is led and fed by the Spirit, self-control or discipline. We've talked about physical discipline and taking care of your bodies. We've talked about mental discipline or spiritual discipline, making sure your thoughts are held captive. And we've talked about emotional discipline, checking your feelings and making sure they line up with how God feels about things, okay? The last thing I want to talk about today is literally kind of come full circle. Physical discipline, we talked about earlier in the week, being how we take care of ourselves, but also physical discipline being how we love others, how we act towards others. We need to be purposeful, that we live and love towards others the way God tells us to. We literally have to make ourselves do the right thing. And Paul says this all over. You know, in Philippians, he says, consider others better than yourselves and act like Jesus. But in 1 Peter, Peter says this. First of all, he says, be alert and of sober mind. Okay, so that is the same discipline we've talked about, taking your thoughts and your emotions captive. You have to be purposeful about that. But then he says in the next verse, verse 8, 1 Peter 4, verse 8, he says, above all, love each other deeply. Okay, we are called to be purposeful about how we love people and treat people well and care for their needs. And this is something that we don't just let happen. We don't let come to us. We don't let, oh, I happened to bump into someone that needed someone, so I was generous. No, we look for ways to love people. That is discipline in living out our faith. Okay? And so if we're doing this, if we're disciplined in what comes in, how we process it, and what goes out, we will be fully living a disciplined life, as Paul tells us to do in Romans 12 and in 2 Timothy chapter 1. And we will be honoring and glorifying God in all that we do. We'll see you next week with more Ministries in a Minute.